Beginning with not only fallout from the Epstein files, but accountability under oath. This was an explosive day in Washington. The Trump Attorney General, Pam Bondi, at turns was defensive, lashing out on the attack, doing talking points, even getting personal. And for all the skepticism or cynicism in our country right now, for understandable reasons, her situation, being under oath, having to discuss a topic that she spent a long time trying to dodge on, and a president who tried to fight the very law she is now tasked with carrying out, all of this speaks to how some things are still working. She couldn't dodge the Congress forever, just as they couldn't hide the documents forever. The documents, of course, being the Epstein files, and the testimony comes as we have many serious questions. Why is Donald Trump in the files so many times, apart from being a public figure who is sometimes mentioned in articles? Why was his name redacted repeatedly? Are all the redactions on the level or not? Will the Trump official who spent years lying about his ties to Epstein and only from these files now admitted visiting Epstein Island face any accountability? And how does all of this impact the survivors who've been through, of course, more than enough, but who've also been proven right repeatedly? Right about how the government has failed them, right about how this process didn't work, right about how transparency, which can be complicated, that's why we have grand jury secrecy rules and other valid ways that confidentiality matters, but transparency can be a way to get public accountability, which they didn't get, which failed them through the other more traditional means. I mention them because not only are they, of course, the victims in this long-running case, but many of them chose, Epstein survivors, to attend this hearing today. They asked why the redactions seemed at times to mistakenly, erroneously, or they question, nefariously cover up information not as intended in the law, which had narrow redaction rules, for example, protecting children or minors, which no rational person or lawyer would disagree with or has disagreed with. But why, instead of those narrow redactions under law, why did some redactions appear to, and now lawmakers have said after reviewing them they did, hide powerful potential co-conspirators, rich and powerful men? Why were the redactions being, they ask, abused that way? That led to one key moment.
Will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
Members get to ask the questions, the witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer. The Attorney General can
that's
respond.
Not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't like the answer.
Time.
So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't she ask Merrick Garland this twice?
I am reclaiming my time, and when I reclaim my time, it is
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady's reclaimed her time.
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
The time belongs to the gentlelady. The gentlelady has 17 seconds.
Thank you. You're not going to answer this question, so let me just
Chairman,
say this.
I'll direct it to
what
you.
a massive cover-up.
No, I'm answering a question.
Chairman, will you restore her time? The witness is interrupted.
I'm not going to get in the gutter with this woman.
Stop the
She's
time
doing theatrics.
and let me.
You can see the intensity of the moment with the back and forth. The Congresswoman saying, this is what the survivors deserve, and can you face them? The chair, kind of off video, you couldn't see him, trying to keep some sort of order, which happens a lot in these hearings, the survivors present, and the Attorney General arguing, basically, if you can infer from her answer, that she didn't think she owed only the survivors something, that this goes back farther, that there are other parts of the government and other prior administrations that also bear accountability. Fact check, true, because this is bigger than just the last couple years. Anyone who's followed the story knows that. And yet, even if it is true that other prior government officials also bear some blame, at least according to the lawmaker there and others who've looked at this, the question is, why can't the Attorney General step up now? She is the Attorney General now. Survivors, some were seen wearing shirts that say the truth is redacted, redacted, redacted. Epstein survivors are still waiting. Release the redacted files. This is a kind of visual cue that is recognizable from the hearing room to the internet to the memes, because so many people across the spectrum have been outraged by the way this Trump DOJ has redacted. A Democrat who saw some of the unredacted files has said there were over 1 million mentions of Trump, which is far more than in the publicly released files, which mention Trump a far fewer number of times. And if some of the million mentions were duplicates, or as I mentioned in fairness, references to a public person, Trump, a longtime celebrity and later a politician, there is still a huge gap and big questions. Here was Pam Bondi.
I believe his name has appeared countless times in the documents
how
that
many
have
people were
been released.
assigned?
If I could finish, I'm going to read you the stats.
I just simply asked whether or not it was true that it was 1,000 folks who were assigned that task. Were those reports accurate?
There are more than 500 attorneys and reviewers. I cannot give you an exact number.
That is the back and forth. Remember, Pam Bondi is the Attorney General who said publicly and in writing there were no more files of significance. There were no more files that were proper to release. We are here over 3 million files later, and she has been proven wrong about that by any standard. Take even people serving in the current government, Trump Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. It is only these files, which Trump and Bondi tried to hide, that have forced him to admit that he was lying when he said he cut off contact with Epstein. We were reporting on this before he even was forced to admit it. Many outlets, of course, as I've mentioned, and we credit and source them, have been reporting and pulling on these threads. He visited the Epstein Island in 2012. Epstein had already been by then a publicly convicted sex offender, which undercuts his prior claim.
Attorney General Bondi, yes or no, has the Justice Department asked Secretary Lutnick about his ties to Epstein?
Excuse me. Secretary Lutnick has addressed those ties himself.
I'm asking you, has the Justice Department specifically asked Secretary Lutnick about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein?
He has addressed those ties himself.
It's true. But when he first addressed those ties, he lied. And he held on to that lie for many years. And it's only this week, after the files were forcibly pushed out under the law, that he had to address it again and say he was lying and admit he visited. Bondi also was asked about Maxwell, who got that prison upgrade, which occurred after Bondi's number 2, Todd Blanche, conducted a very unusual interview with Maxwell. You don't have to be an expert on any of this to wonder why someone who is serving for such heinous crimes would ever get a prison upgrade, especially right after that interview, which led many to ask whether it was causal or some sort of reward. The Bureau of Prisons, which is under the DOJ and transferred Maxwell, reports in the end to the Attorney General.
Who ordered her to be transferred to the minimum security prison that she was ineligible for? Who signed off on the special privileges? Was it Mr. Blanche? Was it one of your other subordinates? So please, can you tell us who sent her there, since you don't agree she should be there?
I said I do not agree she should receive special treatment. She was transferred, I learned after the fact, to the same level facility, and that is a question for the Bureau of Prisons. I was not involved in that at all. The same level facility, I don't know why.
Fact check, less than true. Dodgy at best. Because even if Bondi was not previously involved, she is the Attorney General. She remains involved by the nature of her job, unless, of course, there is some rare situation like you are formally recused from some part of BOP or DOJ. That's not the case. So she's involved right now. If she thinks this was the wrong transfer, if she thinks it looks like or constitutes any kind of reward or special treatment for this convicted sex offender, she can move her back. So it's not enough to say you didn't know back then. Otherwise, people can also ask whether they believe all this, right? We've reported on people lying. Bondi's been caught with misstatements about the very Epstein matter before. This is not some random thing. This is the DOJ's job to oversee, detain, punish people in the Bureau of Prisons. That's what the entire federal prison system is. Now, this was not specific to just that moment. Across the hearing, we saw Bondi, who may still be fighting for her job, given the many problems she's faced around the Epstein files and her own misstatements, trying a sort of Trumpian effort to dodge, to deflect, to bring up unrelated issues, to say things that she thinks are positive for the Trump administration but aren't really responsive to the questions, and at times just hurling insults.
How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question the way I
ridiculous.
asked.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch.
Reclaim
Not
it?
on our time. No way.
Reclaim
And I
it?
told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, oh, I
anything,
did tell you because we
washed
saw
up
what you did in the
loser
Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
I'm
if they're not
talking.
privileged,
Quiet.
Don't yell at me. I want the record to reflect that, with this anti-Semitic culture right now, she voted against a resolution condemning.
Is Jewish. I just want to be clear.
Do you want to go there, Attorney General? Or do you want to go there? Are you serious? Talking about anti-Semitism to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust?
I reclaim my time.
Really?
And on it went. If you see clips like that, you may understand why the news isn't going to run huge parts of that hearing, because some of it, at just the level of being able to listen to it, became heated, if not at times nonsensical. So that's enough of the hearing for this moment. I want to make sure we keep an eye on what we're learning. There were references today, and we played some of them, to the question asked, what about the other co-conspirators? And there were references to Lutnick and others exposed by these files. Those things matter more than the fireworks. I want to show you what we've gleaned from the files around the time the DOJ had Epstein as an indicted defendant, because they had their inner circle identified. Only one of these individuals, as everybody just about knows by now, Maxwell, has been convicted. Others, as you see here, were pursued to some degree. Brunel indicted abroad, later died. Kahn subpoenaed. Indyke subpoenaed. His assistant Groff seen as a potential co-conspirator, according to the DOJ at the time, never indicted, and Beller you see there. What you're looking on your screen is from the files. This is not some external observation. This is what we now learn the DOJ was pursuing at the time. And the point raised in the hearing today, and by many others, is how few of these people have actually been pursued. Is that because this is as far as the facts went? That would be okay. Or is it because they were interfered with or somehow stopped by the many power games and corruption that are also redolent in the files? Now, because the names appear in the files does not mean any of them have committed any criminal wrongdoing. But that is the start of the threads we're pulling on. Here you have a much wider group of names. With the same caution, the fact that they're pursued or reviewed does not mean evidence of criminal wrongdoing. And this is a partial list, but I want to show you this tonight. We've made this, again, based on the files. Upper left, you see Lutnick. The testimony that he's given about Epstein Island only came this week. Musk has been subpoenaed for this. The files showed more information about him interacting with Epstein than he'd admitted. Acosta, you may recall, ousted from the first Trump term over that sweetheart deal with Epstein. Clinton, now subpoenaed, and big debates over what the Congress may or may not learn there. You go through the rest of this list, these are not all household names, but they do show that both before the full file release and now as we continue to go through it, there are consequences, investigative pursuits, information continuing to come out. That matters as much or more than the fire in the hearings and some of the politics surrounding it, because there is a process, however long delayed, to try to get to the bottom of the information and the accountability for the people in these files. And as you see, so many of them turn out to be rich, powerful, well-connected men. Professor Murray is here, and we're going to get into this when we return in 90 seconds. We're following that absolutely fiery hearing with Attorney General Bondi today in the Congress. And amid the fireworks, there are still important investigative questions. We have seen from the new files for the first time what the DOJ was looking at. Here it is the first time that they actually had Epstein with not only fallout in a sex trafficking case. These were the inner circle figures they identified. Some of that was questioned along with the fireworks today. I want to bring in Professor Melissa Murray. Your thoughts on the heat and the light today?
Well, Ari, you said it was fiery. I would say it was bonkers. I don't think I have ever seen anything quite like this, certainly from a sitting attorney general. There were times when it felt a little bit more like a housewives reunion than congressional testimony. So, leaving aside the questions of accountability that were genuinely left aside by the attorney general, it was a kind of shocking display of disrespect to Congress as a coordinate branch of government, an assertion of the president as someone to whom the Congress should be obedient to whom Pam Bondi is clearly very loyal to. And for the American people, there was no transparency. There's no accountability here. This was not an opportunity for the public to learn what happened. This was grandstanding in its best form.
Yeah, I mean, on her side, and yet the chart I'm showing is what we also learned from the files that we didn't have. The inner circle we have up here that shows you basically, as Nadler and others were asking today, whatever happened to these leads. The wider chart I want to show comes, as you rightly point out, despite the conduct of the DOJ and the Attorney General. And I'm not here to tell everyone what the proper amount of accountability is, but I can report more accountability over time as more files have come out. Upper right, Larry Summers, who's been in a Democratic administration, paid some consequence. The lower bar is a lot of financial elites and others. Lower left, Brad Karp, a top lawyer, ousted from one part of his position to Paul Weiss. And these are early days of the many millions of files. I guess that's the question tonight. How do you contrast that slow push the survivors have made for some accountability with the way the DOJ and Bondi continue to conduct themselves?
Well, I mean, this is not the first time we've seen something like this, Ari. In the wake of January 6th, we saw state bar associations moving with greater alacrity to hold the individuals who were associated with the attack on the Capitol. For example, Rudy Giuliani was disbarred. That's where we got the majority of accountability. We saw a really slow effort to bring cases, whether they were civil cases or criminal cases, in the courts. Lots of reasons for that, obviously. In the case of the president and a criminal case, the Supreme Court was a real lag on that. But this is not unusual in a circumstance like this, where you have a deeply politicized Department of Justice and a president that is controlling quite a lot of it, to see the accountability coming from private institutions who are beholden to other interests, not just the president, whether it's corporate interests or shareholders. They have other things they have to account for, and that makes them move perhaps more quickly than the wheels of justice.
Yeah, and you're making sort of a broader point that's not stitched into the rules, but is how this works, what you're calling their stakeholders. It's funny because in a better working system, you'd expect the formally democracy-related parts of our system to use democracy, and that seems to be failing in all sorts of ways, rule of law, and yet you're reminding us a type of democracy, or at least outside pressure, lands. And we're not talking about small issues. When you talk about an insurrection like Jan 6, those consequences, or this level of sex trafficking, you're talking about the truly indefensible. I want to play a moment where Pam Bondi said several things that were true. She talked about the history of this, which I've been careful to emphasize. The DOJ has problems across multiple administrations. And then she said the Dow is up. True, but as lawyers might say, relevance. Look at this exchange.
None of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
Now, Professor, I just want to be clear. We do have transcripts here in the newsroom. She says none of them asked Garland. Do you want to know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over. That's the claim. So I don't think we have to spend too long parsing it. It's nonsensical. But in her smattering of talking points, she refers to the fact that under Merrick Garland, the DOJ did not have a plan for transparency for the survivors. They did not do better release or redactions, and they did have control of the files then. So I'm curious, again, asking you to do the hard work today. Some of us just watch Pam Bondi. You have to explain her. How should we intelligently make sense of a bucket of points, some of which are true? If you say, is this a bipartisan failure? A lot of the evidence says yes. And some of which are irrelevant, which is how do you fix it now?
Yeah, I think that point was made a million times in the course of this hearing. Like, there's a lot of blame to go around here. There are a lot of people who look the other way in a number of different administrations. This scandal goes back years and years. So again, that's clear. That's true. Everyone knows it. But right now, Pam Bondi is the Attorney General of the United States, and the buck stops with her and this administration because of everything that has happened, because the ball is in their court right now. And her answers, I mean, not simply non-responsive, just absolutely unhinged. I mean, it seemed like the point was Donald Trump has a mandate to bring the economy to some kind of peak, and he's doing that. Therefore, this accountability is unnecessary. The answers that people want over these questions don't matter. And that's simply not the case. And to the point about democracy failing here and democratic institutions failing here, I'm sure that's true. This was Congress, the representative of the people, holding a bipartisan hearing where on both sides of the aisle, there were critics of Pamela Jo Bondi. And instead, what we saw was the Attorney General of the United States, someone who is charged with upholding the law, the chief law enforcer of this nation, and she stonewalled. She stonewalled Congress. She stonewalled the people.
Yeah, no, I think you put it clearly, and you have a measured form of also making sure people understand this isn't normal. This wasn't constructive. She has an obligation right now. If I may be so bold as to say, she's a public servant, and her salary is paid by the taxpayers.
That's not bold. That's the truth, Ari. She is a public servant.
That's the truth. And as you say, that didn't come across at all. And her problem is bigger than the political kind of circus she wanted to make it. She has a problem with the survivors. She has a problem, as you mentioned, with the legal experts and community there. She has a problem that her boss, Trump, has given a lot of this process over to Todd Blanche because she was caught in too many lies, even quote unquote, for Trump. So she's got a lot of problems. And as you point out, this effort to kind of go nuclear DEFCON bonkers bananas 10 may not have done what she hoped, which is to make this look like a circus. There's a lot of people who've been following the receipts. Professor, as
Ari,
always,
she's
thanks for
got
being here.
99 problems, but accountability ain't one.
Boom. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Professor. We always love Professor Murray covering the ground on more than one level. I'm going to show folks by the end of the hour Joe Rogan hitting Trump on gaslighting for Epstein, I should say, ICE busting a lot of different ICE problems, but they've recently been busted for how they're defying judges' orders, and we're looking at accountability on that. But a story that is incredibly important. It shows how Trump wants to be Putin in ways that are illegal, that could get people around him indicted eventually, but that today involve a huge loss. The guardrails hold, as we've been telling you about. That story's next. An autocrat tries to indict the opposition party for things they say, their actual political speech. We report on those stories from abroad all the time in Putin's Russia. Tonight, we're reporting on that story here, even though Trump's effort to be Putin is failing badly and in public. A federal grand jury taking the rare step in Washington of refusing to allow a case moving forward that the Trump DOJ wanted to indict not one or two, but 6 different Democrats all at once. This comes from a plot Trump admitted of selective prosecution, where you try to target opponents. That's usually unlawful. He wanted to indict lawmakers for their protected free speech in a video. This rebuke is a blow to Donald Trump's probably unconstitutional revenge agenda, abusing the DOJ to go after people that he doesn't like, not based on evidence, but just because he wants to. The Times notes how it was a group of ordinary citizens that just rejected this new bid by Trump to label dissent as a criminal act. Some of the targeted lawmakers speaking out today.
Every American should be appalled that Donald Trump and his political goons in the Justice Department have weaponized our Justice Department.
This is a victory for the Constitution of the United States.
They want to scare not just us, they want to scare the American people. I'm not going to be intimidated. No one up here is going to be intimidated.
This now adds 6 more losses to the many failed efforts by Trump to go after his opponents. This one coming from a very controversial figure, Jeanine Pirro, who is Trump's sort of political prosecutor or operative in D.C. We don't know whether the DOJ will, having been dealt this rebuke, drop it or try another way. The pressure has been mounting on Bondi because Trump complains about her that he wants more illegal prosecutions. All of this, though, also reflects what you heard those lawmakers mention. The embattled guardrails of American democracy are strained, but some are working. And what you see in green on the tabulation we've shown you, citizen juries, they are standing up even as CEOs or elites have failed and buckled. It was grand jurors, regular citizens, who stopped this effort to indict these 6 people, again, over free speech. Congress has largely failed under Republicans to deal with any of this. For example, if it were exposed that a president was abusing the DOJ to try to detain and imprison opponents, you could imagine the demands for a special counsel or defunding or a united front, as this type of effort is going at Congress itself. And yet most Republicans are standing by. Some are now making noise. While we've shown efforts to indict opposition members before, now on this one, Republican Tom Tillis says this is political lawfare. The Attorney General in that hearing we've been covering was also grilled on it today.
You replace real prosecutors with counterfeit stooges who robotically do the president's bidding. You've turned the People's Department of Justice into Trump's instrument of revenge.
The new presidential directive was a politically motivated attack on civil society designed to silence those who disagree with the administration.
Trump orders up prosecutions like pizza, and you deliver every time.
What I will say is no one is above the law.
Mr. Chairman,
Weaponization has ended.
Fact check, false. The Trump administration has pursued more political opponents, people of the opposite party, than any administration in American history in this amount of time. DOJ vet Leslie Caldwell is here next.